The very word hygiene is of ancient Greek origin. Hygeia is the daughter of Asclepius, the patron god of medicine. The modern medical emblem with bowl and snake also comes from ancient Greece. The snake coiled around the staff, caduceus, was considered an attribute and symbol of Asclepius, and Hygeia was depicted feeding the snake from a bowl. The ancient Romans borrowed much from the ancient Greeks, including Asclepius, whom they called Aesculapius. Greek doctors were considered the best, and the richest Romans invited them to their homes as attending physicians. Roman physicians learned from the treatises of the great Greek healer Hippocrates, who lived in the 4th century BC.E. Also from the Greeks, the Romans adopted a beautiful habit that was considered necessary for maintaining health, the desire for bodily purity. Wherever new Roman colonies appeared, aqueducts, water supply channels, were built in them. The Romans tried to install water intakes in the mountains so that the water for drinking and washing was the cleanest. In every Roman town and even village, thermal baths were built, many of them at public expense. As already mentioned above, one of the most affordable pleasures in ancient Rome is cheap or even free baths. And here's why each subsequent emperor tried to surpass his predecessors. The baths in the capital became more and more chic. They provided visitors with many other services in addition to washing. The Roman authorities subsidized the baths, so the visitor was charged only one small coin. The imperial baths were free of charge. But for additional services, such as fashionable haircuts and various spa treatments, it was necessary to pay specialists who worked in the same thermal baths. The Romans believed that a clean-shaven face distinguished a civilized man from a shaggy barbarian, so the services of barbers were popular. In addition, they tried to get rid of hair all over the body, for which experienced artisans used tools such as pumice stone and wax. Water from the thermal baths before entering the city sewer system passed under public toilets, washing away sewage. Also, the Romans took care not only about the cleanliness of the water, but also of the streets. Horse-drawn transport at that time was the only alternative to walking. Of course, horses left surprises behind, and so that the streets were not covered with manure, special city slaves cleaned it. This fertilizer was then sold to farmers, which brought the city additional profit. And so that the dung piles did not have to be left to the people themselves, in the nooks and crannies of ancient Roman streets there were latrines and urine vessels. The Romans also knew about the benefits of washing their hands before a meal. To do this, a special bowl of water was placed in front of each guest. The Romans were so clean that they even washed their feet when they entered the house after a long walk. It would seem that with this level of hygiene, the Romans should have suffered from infectious diseases and parasites to a much lesser extent than the barbarian peoples. Recently, scientists found out that in reality not everything was so rosy at all. British scientist Piers Mitchell from the Department of Archaeology and Anthropology at the University of Cambridge has carefully studied biological materials from Roman settlements in York. And I found in them even more parasites inherent in the human body than in the barbarian peoples of that time. The Romans suffered from roundworms and dysentery amoeba, as well as fish tapeworm. The latter is to blame for the love of the ancient Romans for garum sauce, which was prepared from fermented fish entrails that were not subjected to heat treatment. In ancient Roman public latrines, there was no paper. In that era, either very expensive parchment was used for writing, or papyrus imported from Egypt, which cost no less. For everyday records, wooden tablets filled with wax were used. In the restrooms, they were wiped with a special sponge on a stick. After that, it was dipped in water to wash off the sewage and reused. This only created an increased risk of contracting dysentery and other intestinal diseases. The Romans knew nothing about germs and how they spread, so the latrines in their homes could stand right in the middle of the kitchen, because there was water flowing there that could be used for flushing. And in the thermal baths, the water in the pools was rarely changed, so the patients who washed in them could infect the healthy ones. In Roman cemeteries, there are often tombstones of people who did not live to be 40 years old. The reason for this was not only frequent wars, but also numerous diseases associated with infection with various infections that the ancient Romans suffered from.